Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we will start. Very good evening to all Rotarians who are here tonight for this strategic planning session. The first house rule is just one. That is, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking, so not to disturb the presentation. And we will hand over to our organizer, AG Nagalingam. Okay. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sunny. District Strategic Planning Chair, Datuk Dr. A.T. Kumararajah, PDG Bhaskaran, DGE Dr. Krishna Kumar, district officers, fellow assistant governors, Rotarians, club presidents, and members. Greetings to one and all. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all of you for your presence at this session. We have an eminent speaker, Datuk Dr. A.T. Kumararajah, who is going to talk about strategic planning and goals. I'm sure this session will be interesting and fruitful for everyone present here. Kindly put your question in the chat box and reply during the question and answer. Wishing you all a happy Malaysia Day. Tomorrow is a public holiday. Thank you, Sunny.
So over to AG Kovin to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, BB Sunny. Good evening, my fellow Rotarians. Can you all hear me? Just wave at me. Good, that's good. Welcome to our lively session today, strategic planning. For most of the people, it's something very boring. The minute you hear strategy and you hear planning, you'll be starting to yawn. I can see Naga, please don't yawn yet. I assure you it's a good session. So my fellow Rotarians, brothers and sisters, give me great pleasure to introduce Datuk Dr. A.T. Kumararajah, or in short form, we call him ATK. Okay, welcome, Datuk. Give me a few minutes to read your mile-long biodata, yeah, but I'll make it short and sweet. In short, Datuk Dr. A.T. Kumararajah qualified with his medical degree, MD, and then went on to complete his postgraduate training as an obstetrician and gynecologist. I'm sorry, I'm not very good in medicine. I know he's a gynae in short. And then he obtained his membership at the Royal College of ONG in London in 2005. And then went on to complete his MBA, specializing in strategic management from Maastricht, Netherlands in 2007. That in itself gives him lots of knowledge. And I have two words. My dear Rotary brothers and sisters, please take notes when he's talking and do ask questions, because he is a man full of knowledge in strategic planning. A little bit more about him. He is a very experienced guy in the medical industry. In fact, he is a government scholar, a brilliant student, by the way, worked with Ministry of Health. He should be the next Director General of Health, I believe. We should vote for him based on his long qualification here. He also did a stint with a multinational company called Sanofi Aventis as a medical advisor, and then went on to work to the largest healthcare company in the world, Abbott Labs, as the Malaysian medical director. And then he moved on to the regional office, where his last stint with Abbott was the regional medical director for ASEAN. He also served as the Honorary Secretary General for Malaysian Associated Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, MICE, on 2015 to 2017 and 2018 to the current period, which is in fact the apex body for all Indian Chambers of Commerce in Malaysia. Dato, I hope you'll be representing all Malaysians in the spirit of Malaysia Day. Okay, he represents all the 30,000 members nationwide. Recently, for his hard work, he was appointed as a committee member in the Entrepreneurship Development Advisory Council, EDAC, under Ministry of Entrepreneur Development in Malaysia. So anybody wants to know latest info about the new minister, you can also ask him. You can also put the questions. Whether he will answer or not is up to him, but we will take note. He also sits in several charitable organization besides serving as the chairman of 2 school governors board. He is also a member of the Lembaga Racun Malaysia. Now, this is interesting. Lembaga Racun Malaysia and Lembaga Tata Tertib Peguam. All those lawyers here, you better get to know him. He is also appointed he was also appointed to become the founding chief executive officer of the Secretariat for Empowerment of Indian Entrepreneurs called SEED under the Prime Minister Department, and then moved on to the Director of Economic and Human Capital Development in SEDIC until November 2017. This is a very strategic role. In fact, we can tap on a lot of strategic planning from him. In Rotary, basically, he joined in year 2014 and then became president for Rotary Club of Greater Kuala Lumpur in 2016-2017, served as the assistant governor in the term of 2020-2021. He is currently the head of Strategic Planning Committee and vice chairman of Corporate Engagement Committee currently. So with that, my long introduction, our strategic planning journey begins. Let us hear from Datuk Dr. ATK, a roadmap to club survival and success. Over to you, Datuk ATK.
Thank you, Kovin, and good evening to everyone. Past District Governor Dr. Bhaskaran, District Governor-elect Dr. Krishna Kumar, who's actually joined us this evening, Sergeant at Arms for this particular event, Past President Sunny from Rotary Club of Ipoh, and I think the event's organizer who has worked very hard to work on the dates, AG Naga from Rotary Club of Greentown. So good evening to everyone, and thanks, Kovin. Basically, I think what is not so strategic is where you and where the organization you work with. So I actually I didn't want to say it, but since you took the introduction, is probably longer than my speech. So I also was trying to remember the first 3 lines, and by the time you finish the introduction, I'm not sure where do I start. So I will probably wait. Let me get the slide done. I'm not sure. Okay. I believe I can share. Just 1 second so that it's. All right. It's is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So thanks. And I thought maybe I should use where AG Kovin from Senawang, who works for one of the largest GLCs of our country, Tenaga Nasional Berhad. It's where they get actually strategic very wrong. Because they are the guys who will offer you huge amounts of reduction in the electricity tariff when you're least using it. So I actually had the guys, yesterday we had a very, one meeting with the Sunway Lagoon and the Legolands of the world and the Resort Worlds of Malaysia. And actually they said, look, no, what's the point of TNB offering us 15%, 20% reduction in tariff when all of our places are closed? But it's only when we open, we should be given those tariffs, because that's the only time we're actually incurring bills. So if we probably look at strategy, and that's where strategy really goes wrong. I've used the same slide I've used 6 months ago, trying where you cannot be everything to everyone. And I think that's basically our strategy gone wrong as far as Rotary is concerned. We have done very, very well as a small district in our nation. But I think it's also where we are trying to cater to everybody's need using a single template, which probably wouldn't work. I see Dr. Tong online. It's nice to have him back. I remember when the days when people tell me, look, Bahau has fallen off the map, and suddenly just now Sunny says down under. I mean, it is like as though Bahau was just found recently on the continent somewhere. But the fact that now Dr. Tong is back in the picture, and I think during my time when AG Samantha was actually AG for him, so she used to travel all the way from PJ going down to Bahau. But if you want to bring Dr. Tong and Bahau back onto the map, the strategy that you use has to be entirely different than the same strategy you used to speak to Dr. Sri Nelson and to the guys in Rotary Club of Greater KL. The problem is why we never succeed very well. I've captured it in about a few slides. So if you just give me very quickly run through this. I've not taken these slides from previous templates, but I've tried to redo it. So I would think there are some 4 phases to it, about 12 things that you can do, and about 4 phases of doing this. quick look at why sometimes with all this strategy, it completely fails. There's something called culture. And as a nation, which is very unique like ours, where we are multi-racial in nature, I think that is more important than anything else like strategy, and maybe even look at the resources that we have. Now, this is basically the current Governor Datuk Bindi's planning, which is across about 7 domains. This has really not changed. I think they have already done past the virtual climate conference, which was the opening gambit. Now we are somewhere in about the rest of the 6 domains that she wants to cover. And I do hear the word the most hardest working governor probably this time around. Again, the strategy, just now we had Bernard with us. I'm not sure whether Bernard is still with us. It is very hard for a strategic position if a governor happens to be fully employed or fully occupied in his profession. Whereas if you're on a retirement, on a semi-retirement mode, where time is better managed, then that will be a better strategy for you to get it to become a governor. So that's again speaking little about it, but I'll come back to it. So my idea of this is when past district governor Siti got in touch with me and says, look, can we do this after your year? So I kind of tag team with her, understudy her during her year, which was 1 year before this, and speak about why strategic planning is needed and why it fails. One, I think we get this very wrong when we start thinking of it as a district. So strategic planning and Rotary happens at the club level. We always sometimes tend to lose the idea that, we have got these 86 clubs, I think about 35 other Rotary clubs and intra clubs that we have with us. And some of the bigger clubs, either in Klang Valley or the bigger towns, tend to outshine so much that we tend to lose the focus that the club Rotary happens at the club level, despite however big, however however good that the Rotary governor happens to be for the district. Second, there is this concept of annual planning, and it doesn't really work, because by the time the current presidents take office, by the time they finish, they have the AGM, and then they're planning for the next president to take place. So that short cycle doesn't really work. It doesn't have a sustainability. Dr. Bhaskaran just now was mentioning about why some of the projects, despite good efforts, don't really make it very well, because that sustainability is coupled with the leadership, which is in a shorter term. It's very hard to get 5 years planning out when you have 5 leaders changing. Again, I think our country has seen this very well. We never change leadership for 60 years, and then every 6 months we are changing prime ministers. So that's again where this COVID has brought about more changes, some of it very much permanent. So this, I won't say disaster, but this huge disruption in the system, especially with COVID in place and the needs of the community having largely changed. 20% of the top 20 have become middle class, and about 15% of the middle class have actually become B40. I think that's the statistics that I see from Department of Statistics. And that number has really shifted the burden on about 2,000 Rotarians to actually deliver more best bang for the buck. And that, without some sort of a planning, would not work. Brings me to the third point, which is optimizing our current people and resources. Fourth, to have a very focused and a renewed belief that we are very optimistic on what we can do, because we don't have to solve the world's problem. All we need to do is focus on what we do very best with the resources that we have, with the kind of people that are members of our club, and deliver the best bang for the buck. And that's basically where the strategic planning works. This is, I think, it's been there for long. It's been the same deck that we've used many long periods of time. So it determines about that 4 phases that we spoke about. You saw it in my first slide. So that 4 phases tends to be about how we, what I call as is. What is it that we are today? That to be, what is it that we want this club to be in an X period of time? Maybe a year, 3 years, 5 years now. I think even government, our government does do this 5-year planning. The 12th Malaysia plan is supposed to have been done a year ago, but again, it's still not even tabled yet. So, but if you look at the 5-year planning, so this 5-year plannings really don't make sense anymore, because in 5 years' time, we're not even sure whether you'll have another pandemic or not. So 5-year plannings don't really work. Years planning don't work. Somewhere in between. While the plans must be fixed to certain milestones, the plan must be also agile for you to make those changes as and when you go. While we know the direction, it doesn't mean you only must follow the north-south highway to get to Penang. You must be able to divert out into Ipoh, use the old road, and before you connect back somewhere in Jelapang or further up in Taiping, and then get back onto the mainstream highway. The problem is we tend to follow the highway and we are stuck. So we are stuck in this 2-hour traffic, going back during Hari Raya and says, look, it is chock-a-block traffic. So that strategic planning is primarily what I think the leadership of Rotary is trying to arrive at. And if we can actually arrive at those visions, we probably can actually do with a good plan for our clubs. And that brings us to phase 4. What is it that we probably start with? I think these are very simple questions. I've just put all that in one slide and says, look, we first have to identify what type of club are we? Are we the KLD Rajas of the world? So if I use a very simple example and says, look, are we the premier? Are we the guys who meet in Shangri-La? So I recently had a member of my club, a very good friend of mine, who I brought KLD Raja's installation when they gave the award to Tan Sri Hisham, when he was still not Tan Sri yet, I think. Datuk Sri Nelson will probably remember, I think early October last year. October last year, we did a grand event in JW Marriott in town. So this guy was very mesmerized. And last week, Datuk Sri, this gentleman joined my club. Because
that's good.
I said, bro, you see, this is the problem, right? So don't compare what you saw in KLD Raja, JW Marriott, and then join Greater KL. Just because there is some similarities, we don't do that in that kind of style. They meet in Shangri-La, we meet down in a kilometer down the road in this Selangor Club. So there is a huge difference about how we manage those clubs. So what type of club are we? Where are we now? And what is it that we want to go to? So that again becomes very, very important. Bahau doesn't need to be KLD Raja. But you look at a club called Burnham Valley. I'm not sure anybody knows about it, right? So this club called Burnham Valley, I would call even a Sindram Berhad club. I was an AG for them, but I think now the current AG also comes from there. They're very Sindram Berhad, but they're very, very effective. And probably our 7th area focus on environment and sustainability. Those guys have a very nice program called HOTS, Hug the Tree concept. And I think with TNB's help, with the current AG Narendra there, I think it has made out very, very well for them. So basically it looks at what is it that they want to go to and what are the resources that they have in place. With that, it is easy to set the vision of the club and then set some planning behind it, look at the strategies behind it, look at some goals, and then drive your plan. Would be a lot more easier than somebody outside there coming and saying, this is what I want the club to be, because he really doesn't know my club. So if you know the DNA and the culture of the club, it is very, very easy to make. You can use any one of these things. I would call these all tools. Like if you look at the 5 avenues of service and 7 areas of focus, I don't have to subscribe to all and everything of this. If I have a club which has got primarily larger senior members, and to say, look, you probably have to spend time looking after our intra clubs, looking after the youth service chairs, while that is noble, but may not be practical because you won't be able to sustain it. But if you talk to them about vocation, you talk to them about community, you probably even talk to them about international services, if the guys who travel very well, then that will be probably more apt for those clubs. So again, like if I take Burnham Valley, for example, if you say Burnham Valley, the 7th area of focus becomes into play. You take clubs like, what do you call, I forgot the club in Damansara, if I'm not mistaken, which has got a very good program for the eye. And then you've got the Rotary clubs in, is it Tampin? I think who's got the dialysis center. Again, I use some of my clubs that I'm very familiar with, like KLD Raja, which runs the home together with Bandaraya Development. So they do best what they do, not necessarily everything outside here. So use these 5 avenues of service, use the 7 areas of focus as one of those guides to see which is probably works best for you. Now, every of our strategic planning document, and I think every presentation has got this thing about the SWOT analysis. And I think in Rotary world, we are one of those who don't use the word weakness. So we say challenges and we say, look, it's a SWOT analysis. So the strength, challenges, opportunities, and threats. But while that is very academic in its argument, I tend to use something a little bit more interesting called the RICE matrix. The RICE matrix I've not put many examples here, but if you look at the rice matrix, which is on the right side of the slide, it's a matrix developed by the Boston Consulting Group guys. So the Boston Consulting Group guys said, look, while this SWOT is very nice to do, you must literally look at SWOT and says, look, strength and weaknesses are actually from internal perspective, and the opportunities and threats are actually outside the organization. So those opportunities that I see outside and the threats that come from outside the organization, and then you must mix and match the S with the O, S with the T. It's a very complicated system. It is an exercise in academy in that sense. Very nice. You'll come up with a lot of stuff, but you will not be able to work on it. Whereas the RISE is a new age concept. So the RISE concept is very simple. Reduce, increase, create, or eliminate. So if you take this RISE concept, which is a matrix by itself, is actually what Professor Chan wrote in his book on blue ocean strategy, I think way back in 2005, where Professor Chan actually said, look, if you can develop that so-called new value chain from your current business, they used it as business as an example. So if you take a current business, you apply this RISE, you actually able to come up with this new value chain. A simple example in RISE, which I've always repeated in little of the talks that I've done, is actually Air Asia. While now nobody can fly, but while Air Asia was still flying, and while Tony was still flying very high, now he's actually busy doing TikToks. And then probably even, I think he was even advertising for hybrid cars, for God knows why. But let's not talk about what's happening to Tony now, but let's talk about Tony in the pre-COVID era. So Tony is this one of, if Tony was alive 2000 years ago, he would have probably made religion. So people think that Tony Fernandez comes out of this cave somewhere and thinks of Air Asia and works out a very grand idea and says, look, everybody can fly. And he's now celebrated as probably the best entrepreneur as far as low-cost carriers, not only in Malaysia and the region, but also probably in the world. But if you go back to the crux of what he did, he worked for a company called Virgin Airlines and his exposure in London School of Economics, and eventually working for the Virgin Group, and they running the Virgin Group themselves. There's a company called Ryanair, R-Y-A-N, right? Ryanair is it's a Irish low-cost carrier, and the first CEO of Air Asia actually happens to come from Ryanair. So what Ryanair does in the early days, they were probably the best low-cost carrier in Europe for the longest of the time. Tony basically copy-paste and improvised in the local context. It is to take Mars or any full-flag carrier, to compare, we probably take Mars, and take Air Asia and says, look, if you reduce certain things, if you increase certain things, if you create certain things which are never there, and you eliminate certain things that people won't miss, and can you come up with something new? You possibly can. So if you look at RISE and says you take Mars, I suppose the times when AG Naga used to fly, or when Dr. Bhaskaran used to fly, so he's used to this very young, handsome-looking surgeon from Butterworth flying into Penang International Airport, goes and smiles at the kebaya-wearing lady in front of him and says, can I have the emergency exit seat, especially the one in the aisle? And that's basically a lot of know-who to get that seat. So what Tony did and says, let's get away with all this nonsense. Do away with the idea that unless you know who, or you're able to smile, you're able to get that seat, or unless you make a call to the minister's office, you get a seat. It says, look, can we commoditize that product? So now that aisle seat, regardless of whether it's Dr. Bhaskaran or it is somebody like me who's a non-discrete, would be able to get that seat, one, if I'm willing to pay for it, and if I'm early. So he basically created a product out of aisle seat in an emergency exit, which nobody was able to differentiate. So now you've got the front seats, the aisle seats, the important seats, the seats that you think fits very well, all becoming different commodities in the same aircraft, in the same aisle, which many years ago Mars was able to do. Now, they also reduced certain things and realized the new age travelers, again, I'm looking at some of people like Dr. Krishna Kumar and everybody else who probably have, I'm sure, like my father's age group, people actually have this picture of them traveling to Subang Airport in full suit, especially those glittering ones. And that's how they used to fly. But now people fly with slippers and shorts. So the concept is those travelers then needed to look the flying type. Now, as long as you can pay, you can fly. And these guys who are flying with the slippers and the shorts and the spaghetti straps are the ones who are probably not going to miss the fine dining that they offer. They're not going to miss the what you call the grand waiting rooms and the lounge rooms and the golden, what's it called? Golden lounge of Mars, who's probably just wants to pass through, get a quick cup of coffee at Old Town and get to the airport, the fastest, cheapest way. So when you start reducing things which are really not necessary, if you do exactly rise to Mars, you'll get Air Asia. And I think that's basically what I really wanted to say as far as this tool is concerned. So while probably those who are familiar with conservative tools like SWOT analysis might want to use it, RISE is a much easier, practical, and a lot more actionable way to do that. And again, that strategic plan that we have, I'll probably have a couple of examples in terms of, we must look at it, kind of people that we have, the timelines that we impose on ourselves, those resources that we have both internally and externally, or we can tap onto, some of the best practices that we can learn both from within our ecosystem in our district, maybe neighboring districts, or even looking at some of the examples that we can make, the partnerships that we can drive very fast with, and also the measurements that we can go on to do. And that will probably bring you to this strategic plan that District Governor Dr. Bindi wants to have, the past District Governor, Brother Kestio, tried to do, is to say, look, if we can get about 20% of the clubs, I think that's the general agreement that we have within, or that's the pitch I made to all the AGs, is to say, look, if we can convert 20% of the clubs to even start looking at having some sort of a strategic plan within their year, or which is this year, is to have a vision, park some annual goals below it, look at those strategic priorities beyond that annual goal, and park programs which are actionable items beyond that. So those four words. While if you read about any one of these topics, it gets very confused. You're getting very confused between what's really goals, strategic priorities, and programs. They're very, very gray. It's no more black or white like this. But to me, a vision is where you want to go. The annual goals is the milestones that you want to achieve. Those are milestones that you see on the road. That strategic priorities are basically things that you should see, because I've always used this example, right? So people say, look, I want to go north, for example, to where Bernard is or where Arvind is, and says, look, I want to go to Sungapatani. So I pass by Aitam, and I think, like, fine. So somebody must have told me, yeah, the strategic priority was to pass Aitam. Make sure you pass Aitam and you know exactly where you're going. But then after I say Aitam, then I come across a place called what you call Skudai, and I say, right, so I must be exiting here. So obviously the Aitam that you are probably seeing, the Aitam down south, in which is just before you come to Johor Bahru. So while the strategic priorities are actually those large guides to tell you, look, those are the strategic areas that you must look out for, the Aitams of the world. Make sure that you get the right Aitam in the north and not in south, and park some actionable programs beyond those priorities. You probably have a good strategic plan, which you must review and adjust as we move. If we do that, I think we have a very actionable plan. The next, okay, these two documents, I've shared it multiple times during some of our physical events early this year or even late last year. This is a canvas we kind of developed within our group. And I think I must thank a lot of the AGs of this year, and also the previous year, in terms of helping come up with this. So this is, I suppose, one of the first attempts from our side to get everything back into one page. To me, my little experience about how many of these things work, all those grand ideas are nice. If I had a large office with 10 staff to try and work for me, I probably can get a strategic plan off the ground the way we speak about it earlier. But if I'm a club like even Greater KL, which is now I think 72 or 73 members counting, is again to get a strategic plan, I must be able to put it out in one sheet of paper and scribble it out. Maybe I've gone on to even do this on an A3 or A4 sheet, A1 sheet, it's slightly bigger, and to get pen down many of the simple things. So if I look at this, the SWOT analysis is right, your first row, which is the SCOT there. Your S's, your to be, and then you look at the visions of the club, the priorities of the club, look at that goal. So everything on the right side, the top 6 is the goals, and the bottom 6 is basically your resources. So if you use this one pager, which I can share immediately after this event, you can probably print it out, scribble it out, maybe even give me an idea about how better we can improve on this. The idea is to bring everything into this one page, whether you type it out, scribble it out, scratch it out, but primarily, if you can bring everything that you know into this one page, you actually have a workable strategy plan. And with that, there is a document attached to it, which you can actually spell out in terms of the goals, whether you, and then review them periodically, whichever way it works. Look at the resources needed, maybe put some names to it, which says, look, these are the members who probably can do this kind of stuff. Look at the measurements that you need to do and put some timelines behind it and make those adjustments when and where necessary. You probably have a plan which is not only agile, but also dynamic and also relevant to at that point in time. I've shared a few examples. I think Dr. Krishna was one of the very few ones who actually asked me and says, where those examples have come from. None come from our region. Near none come from our region. I again also spoke to Dr. Bindi at that time, and I said, look, if we develop this strategic goal, this one-pager document, let's publish it, because there's so little out there. While I think Rotary spend millions, if not more than that, to come up with documents like the strategic planning guide. I think that's there in our resources document. Is probably, you can't really see it because my screen is blurred, but that I'll share it afterwards. There is a Rotary health check. There's a vibrant club. There's a strategic planning guide, which is all available on My Rotary or Rotary Club Central. But there's very little example. So I've used the San Miguel example, which speaks about the SWOT analysis and says this club, the strength is basically the community surveys, the the Rotary reputation, the fundraising ability, the leadership, the location, the public political relationship. I suppose in any Malaysian club, you can't write that because we're not even sure where the politicians even have a relationship or not. This tends to be your strength. And then they speak about the weaknesses of the have and says, the non-active members, the transparency of the club dealings, the Spanish language, because this is again a Spanish-speaking club. Whether that's actually our weakness or not, like again, we have this Mandarin-speaking clubs. I think it is a strength because that is the strength of unity in diversity. The Malaysian club, like us, can say, look, we've got a fully Mandarin-speaking club, smack middle of Kuala Lumpur, and that club can deliver things that many others cannot deliver. So that is something that we should be able to celebrate. That uniqueness is something that really puts us out there, and also those opportunities and threats. Now, this is just a simple example of how another club very far away from us has actually done this, and I would even show you another example of how granular they tend to be. So you look at this example. I put down that if it's big enough on a screen, on your right side, I didn't want to take out everything. So if you look at also what's on the left, they have actually put out their mission, vision, their values, and their goals. And on the right side, they have actually written out what all those strategic priorities. They have put some timelines behind it. They have put measurable numbers. They have made that very granular. Simple example would be, if you look at objectives on traditional media and newspaper, they have said submit one press release monthly to local media sources. Submit one press release quarterly to larger news sources. So it is as granular as that. So it is like as saying, look, put one news article in Suara Perak, if there's one in Perak, if I understand, and maybe one news article at least every quarter at the Star newspaper, if people still read newspapers down. But maybe the new age clubs will probably want to look at social media, and it says Facebook. Facebook is already dated by many standards. Povin has got a Facebook. Somebody who's younger has got an Instagram account, and somebody even younger has got a TikTok account. Now, even here, they have made things which I suppose in many of our clubs, we don't really go. So you look at things like increasing traffic from the Rotary's Facebook to the club's Facebook. They look at very unique things like increasing the number of male fans between the age of 25 to 34 from the current 21% to 30% by end of 2016. That is how granular that club, I think it's Rotary Club of Michigan, tends to put their strategic plan. 25 to 34, from the 21%, that's a 10% jump, that's a 50% jump in the numbers. By the end of 2016, enlisting the targeted ad campaigns and with the current Rotary members. So that's very, I suppose, a good example of how granular some of those plannings tend to get. We don't have to have everything, but even if you look at membership as an example, which is a big thing for us, they have actually put that and says, look, adding 2 new corporate members by a particular point in time. They look at 100% retention of corporate membership on something that we may not really have, but that again gives you an idea about what they are really planning out. Looking at 90% retention of active members and also 50% increase in total membership in all categories by a particular date, which is basically the end of their Rotary year for 2017. So, and they've also put down how is it that they want to achieve all this. So if any club, the thing about that club level strategic plan, that 1-page canvas that I shared just now, doesn't need to be for everything. It can be for those main 3 pillars. So if you say membership is the thing that I want to drive in the club in the next medium term, short term. Now we probably have one strategic plan just for membership. Or we'd say, look, we have done well with membership because, again, I'm looking at Dr. Sri Nelson, because once you go in this compound, I only can see 4 or 5 people on my screen. So I'm looking at Dr. Sri Nelson and says, look, what else is KLD Raja guys need? So we have got everything done now. We need name. So let's look at the public image. I think we had the past president, Zed, who's very good. I think he's also public image chair, I think this year. And Zed is one of those guys who may be able to bring out that public image as far as the Rotary Club of KLD Raja goes. So it is, again, you don't have to do this for everything. You do it for what you think is probably immediately necessary. It can be even for a service project. It can be for an international project. It can be for membership. It can be for PI. It can even be, it's a stretch in this times, but even for KRF or even fundraising as it goes. So if we use those clear examples, I'll probably skip that, we probably get very, very good results. But the last take was, with all the strategic planning and the academic exercises and the goodwills that we have and the powers of the district able to help members or even the assistant governors and even the past presidents and even the president-elects and the Rotary leaders, past, present, and future, the whole world trying to help you. If this simple thing about how on the left we approach it, strategy, goals, objective, activities, as we mentioned it, and then look at results, and then we forget there is this huge thing about people. So we tend to, on the left is like you can work with machines, but on the right, you work with people. So they've got cultures, they've got likes, dislikes, they have got things like values within them, which feels it's perfectly right. It is okay for a club to say, let's leave out a whole gender group outside. And as long as I subscribe to that idea, I'm comfortable with it, which is fine. So everybody else outside the room can actually have an issue with it and probably burn effigies of that particular person, but really doesn't matter. As long as I think that culture is perfectly okay within my ecosystem, they have practices which they have done for years, which somebody else outside wouldn't understand and says, look, this is a waste of resources, or this is actually not optimal use of the resources. That guy wouldn't probably understand how that club works. And also looking at some of the behaviors, we probably have to temper a pragmatic plan with culture. The only reason or all reasons that many of the strategic plans never working is somebody from the district or somebody from the AG or somebody who doesn't understand the club enough says, look, this is the template, this is the document, this is what we need to do, this is what the governor expects from us to do, so let's do it, get it done, finish. Nobody subscribes to it, simply because the culture of the club says, it really doesn't matter. I am the plan. And there are many clubs who probably say that, and they are successful in that. You should be able to manage that. I give you Narinder as an example, or AG Narinder as an example, and says, look, if Burnham Valley in the life of me can never increase membership, they have increased one member in my year. That too, I must be considered lucky, because it happens usually once in 7 years. And they were actually flirting with that member for 5 years, even before they admitted her. That's about the best they will do in membership. But you don't really need to push them on membership, because you don't expect Burnham Valley to become Greater KL by 70. All you need to expect Burnham Valley is to do HOTS very, very well, puts us on the map as far as sustainability and environment goes, and there you have it. If you take some of the clubs, like I think the Rotary Club of Bukit Kiara Sunrise, I think they're doing an excellent program as far as the Rotary Education Fund goes, and that's really something out of the world in terms of bringing education back to the B40, or the people really who needs it. That is something that they do with a passion, regardless of who the president is, regardless of who. I think Dr. Tong, again, there's another Dr. Tong there, right? So I think he's one of them who says, look, regardless of who's chairing the club, we still go ahead and do. And that culture is probably what's delivering results. With that, I think these are the documents that I mentioned, the strategic planning document, the Rotary health check, and also the Vibrant Club document, all of it, which is available online, is to bring you to the idea that simple catch up in terms of the facing. Look at the goals, look at the vision, look at the goals, look at the priorities, and also look at the programs, and and then look at the results. There was this large discussion that we had, I think, during when Dr. Bindi wanted to start her year, and I think even we had the past district governor, Dr. Kestio, with us, and I think there was this discussion about what do we do about strategic planning chair. So my first take was, I said, look, let's only do 20%. And everybody else was, I mean, the most optimistic there says, look, every club should be able to actually have this. And I said, fine, that's all okay for the guys who think that the world is built on air and water. But I'm very pragmatic about what we do. If I actually reach 20% of these clubs, 16 of these things, to me, if I get one club per AG, I think we are home with strategic planning as we start, because that big bite won't work. Every AG knows his own 4 or 5 clubs. He knows which club can do strategic planning, especially with COVID cover. You hardly can do much. You must be able to sit with them, work with them, work along those documents, come up with it, test it, twist it, and come up with something actionable and agreeable to all members. Then you probably actually have a strategic planning that works. With that, thanks to AG Naga and the organizing team, I see now the number has gone to 32. Earlier it was 26. So that's good strategy as we end the program. I'm open for questions. I've taken off the share, so I think I'm visible.
Yeah, hi, Doctor. This is Francis here from Rotary Club of Greentown.
Hi, Francis.
Hi. Okay, my question is this. I understand the relevance of long-term planning. I would like to know what number of years are you looking at? Because just now you said 5 years, maybe too far. 1 year, of course, is not there. So is it 2, 3 years?
I think
what are the clubs to look at?
So 5 years is too far. I think that one proven. To me, I think it's proven because government never got it right. So we can use the government as a government says, look, 5 years, too far. 1 year, too short, because it doesn't work. So the trick is the number is between 1 to 5. Now with COVID, you're not sure which is the number. I would think maybe a 3-year plan with specific goals. Don't take a too big a bite. Take a club and says, look, what is it that you want to do? You want to grow the membership? See, for example, right? So I would also say why that one size doesn't fit and Rotary is trying to do everything for everybody. You take some of our past district governor, as I see it, right? So I see here and I see, say, those who are not here, for example, say past district governor KS Teo. I don't know what anybody remembers KS Teo for, but I will probably remember KS Teo for crossing 2,000 mark. That's the only thing you need to remember. You don't need to remember KS Teo of raising, another a huge amount to TRF. He doesn't need to have this big, huge impact program. But you just remember that KSTO crossed the 2,000 mark. So every club needs to just have that one sexy product. And that product alone will deliver what they do. So that's basically where we need to drive. And a 3-year plan is a very pragmatic, gives us enough latitude to work with, but also not to forecast too much into the future because we're not sure where we are in 3 years' time. I mean, nobody forecasted COVID, right?
Okay. The other thing is it do we have to have at club level I'm talking about? Do we have to have a strategic planning director? Does he need to be on the board? Because these are things which are going to take change in the constitution. Again, approvals at AGMs, and isn't there some sort of overlap between the directors and between the strategic planning director? The current directors and strategic planning directors.
That's the thing, Francis. You come from Greentown, right?
Yes.
That's the thing. So I don't know, those who are politically attuned will probably understand if somebody, when Najib was in power, if somebody Pekan asked a question, not necessarily Pekan will never come up on the map, but somebody from Pekan, a delegate from Pekan stands up and asks questions as equivalent to Najib asking the question. So I'm sure Francis is planted by Dato' Bindi to remind me, to remind everybody out there, including the assistant governors, to say one of those promises was not only to convert 20% of the clubs this year, but is also to have that strategic planning chair, which many of our clubs, including mine, hasn't done it, but we are doing it, is to make that part of the board, and that can be actually amended at the bylaws. And to amend the bylaws, you can just do it at a regular club meeting. You don't even have to wait for the AGM, and that's my understanding as far as Rotary laws go. So thank you, Francis, and I think that was a good carom shot, bro.
Okay, and isn't there any overlapping between what the directors now want to do and this strategic planning director? I understand it's 3 years, but some of the clubs, they also look at like long-term projects, say a global grant which goes on for 3 years or 2 years, and other projects which are long-term projects.
I think, Francis, that question, right? So they don't apply to 85, 86 clubs. They apply to probably 8 of them. So instead of telling these 8 guys to say, look, let's apply that 3-year strategic planning chair needed to all clubs and manage those outliers in the system, the 20% or less, which probably needs a little bit of tweaking to make it even maybe longer or more permanent or otherwise. Because if not, it's very hard to find that fine line which fits all.
Okay.
Dato' APTK, Dato'
Sri?
Nelson, yeah. Okay, through my experience, because this SP, the strategic planning is very important to add the survival of any organizations, more so in the NGO. Okay, I've gone through this JCs also. We have this SPC committee, and normally this SPC committee, the chair will come from senior members. At least they have gone through the process of, at least they know what is the direction the club got to do. But at least now I see a lot of Rotary here, they are not able to, I put them in the board, okay? Their knowledge is not able to chart out the kind of action plan for the next 2 years, 3 years, because the 1 year of surveys is definitely going to be not time for them to think of SPC for the club. So I would rather, why can't, if it's possible, encourage the past president of the club, senior member of the club to chair it, and involve 1 or 2 of them, the younger member, those about 3 years now, know about JC and the Rotary Club idea, to go in the committee, then chart out the action plan. And then I see your plan is fantastic, the chart you had come up, it's so easy to do. I think it makes a senior member able to guide, but not the current board member. I think they are too clean, they are too clean. Yeah.
I think Dr. Sri brought out a very good point. I mean, managing experience with expertise. So again, I think we see it, right? So I suppose more so than Dr. Sri Nelson, I think I see it late 40s. So it is like neither here nor there. So you got these young players who are behind you, who probably like you think they're fresh, wet behind their ears and so fresh and says, you know what, you know, but they've got energy, they've got expertise that I don't have. But then you also saying, look, you know, you got experience, and what am I supposed to do with experience? Really can't sell. The commodities, it's become commoditized. The price is not there. So I think it is to marry this experience with the expertise. So like what Dato Sri said, is to probably get one of those young at heart past presidents to put them in the role, work with the younger age group of guys who probably understand the ground a little bit more better, and to actually have that pulse ready, but to have that enough knowledge to guide this, as opposed to stepping on too many toes. And while that's all perfectly fine in the outside world, in a club, it wouldn't work, because like I said, the only reason why we fail is culture. It's simply because we don't understand the culture. We make enemies with literally every past president or anybody who's in the club, and then hoping to have strategy. That's really not planning. That's kamikaze.
Yeah. True, very true. You know, we need to utilize the senior member experience and getting the younger member to come in to implement and share and guide them along the way. And I think your action plan is fantastic. You know, the kind of the schedule you put up. You know, this level of the club level, and it's all very simple to understand. You know, I think we must take a senior member to guide the younger board member.
Anybody else?
Dato, I think the directors can do operational, and director, I think they can prepare the tactical plan and operational plan, isn't it?
So again, I pre-warn you, these are all questions that are coming from the same club. I'll be accused of what do you
You're
call
just playing devil's advocate, don't worry.
No, because I'm sure, like, if it was about 200 years ago, you fellows would have put me in charge me for mutiny and get me back. But because all these are planted questions, so to me, these planted questions answers must be very, very careful. It's like walking on landmine. It says, okay, so whether they do operational tactical.
Yeah.
Now, it all depends, because if I have 72, like my club, I can tell you my personal experience. So you got 72. Most of the 72, I think came, most, as I would say, maybe about 25 of this 72 came in the COVID year.
Yes.
Near none of them I recognize by phone number. So they all names which I don't have on they're only numbers, they don't have names behind my phone number. Now, so this is where the problem is. So we have got our installation coming, hybrid in some nature. Siva, as usual, again, we must manage culture, right? So whether you like, don't like, and all secondary. Siva is de facto leader, is like how Anwar is to PKR. You know, anybody can chairman, Anwar is still the chairman, right? So Siva now asks a question and says, look, you know, how many of you are vaccinated? Surely half of them, KL, 80% already have got one jab or inside and probably already finished the second jab. He asked a simple question. How many of you 72 guys who can come there on that particular day, physically present, double vaccinated? I've got 22 names. So there are 50 names of these members in my club who are just not there. So I'm not sure how operational or tactical that is. But the problem is this, in a 72 club, I can't even find more than 20 players who I know by name. So in a club which is smaller than that, you're going to have trouble trying to fit in your board, trying to find your PE, hope that the guys go for your pets. If you find those 4 fellas, you're already home. You are like already, okay, I've done my work for this year. Your AG will think, okay, la, game over, done. Then to find on top of this one strategic planning chair, I love Kovin when he announces this, right? So it sounded like a very important job. It's the most job that nobody actually, Kovin, I can tell you, rest assured, for the last 3 months, nobody has looked for me. And I myself actually thought, Ayo, I've not done anything. Let's do something. Thank God for AG Naga. If not, that also will go down the drain. So to find a Mangsa for you to become strategic planning chair, not easy as it sounds. To me, look around for somebody who's got some, I suppose, natural, liking to that, a little bit of tact, who can sleep with the devil, who advocates the idea that keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, and probably that's the fella. For you to find that person, that's that only your club knows. So I can tell you in Senawang, that's COVID. No? Or if you go to Bangsa, that's AG Billy. He was here just now. Yeah.
ATK, they are here. ATK, don't forget, the one who organized also Naga, from Green Town. Lucky I'm behind him watching all this.
Bro, Naga is different. Naga is old school, worked for United Plantation. He works like the British guys. He's not your Malaysian. Don't forget, Naga is Malaysian by birth, Indian by race, but he's British by practice.
Apu, not British, Danish.
Danish.
I'm local school, bro.
Naga, Danish.
I'm local school. I wouldn't make a difference. Anybody who's Caucasian is European to me.
In the shipping line, we have to make a plan for 5 years in United Plantation. It's compulsory, how much we are going to produce, where you're going to sell, where you're going to sell, who are your buyers, and so on.
Dr. ATK, I think it's a good thing to come up with a strategic plan for all the clubs. Only thing, like you said just now, we went through a few things, choosing the right person, whether the person is assimilated. I think just now you spoke about club culture as well, so these are some of the things which I think we should not rush into, but we should take our time and we need another strategic plan to get that strategic planner in. Okay, that's my take.
Okay,
that's my
okay,
take.
now
I say one club. I'm people here once again. One club per AG. I think that's very optimistic. One club per AG.
Yeah.
Okay, Datuk. Just we come up from Green Town, right? So let's the other clubs. First question first.
Okay, I'll mute.
Okay, I'm from Metro Ipoh. You see, we have a small club nearby. Now got 11 members. So these strategic plans I was looking at, it's not that easy to be implemented because of manpower side. Yeah, problem.
People, I didn't. You said 11 numbers and
Yes.
lack of manpower.
Yeah.
And the question is.
No, it's just lack of manpower, so it will not be easy for us to have a strategic plan.
So I think that's the thing, right? So people, again, in your case, right? So again, this is all nice to have. All those strategic plan, like I mentioned, this one page, one full pager is all nice to have. But in your case, I suppose you are on a threshold of needing to have that minimum size, minimum order. Say if you say in factories, the minimum size to make it viable. So you probably have to cross that 11 and go a little bit higher. And you don't really have to have a major strategic plan completely worked out. You probably just want to say, look, by 2022, as we finish this COVID year of Rotary, can I increase my membership by, say, I don't know, good guess is 50%. So I probably come to a number of say 18 or 20, and says that will give me enough latitude, like you said, manpower, because I'm doing a service, community service project. So while strategic planning all is nice to have, I at least need some fellows on the ground who can give me enough hands and legs to do those projects. And that's more important than to have this grand strategic planning director. Name sounds longer than the designation is longer than the name. It's all nice. They give you a nice office and they don't give you work. So you don't really have to have the strategic planning chair for Metro Ipoh, right?
I think we still require one chair, but don't have to get from outside.
Or you can double up. I'm sure most of us double up anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
We look at that.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Dato. I'm Vijay from Rotary Club of Kinta.
No. Hi, Vijay.
Okay, Dato. Our strategic plan here, normally strategic plan means a long term we plan, So we all post in a club just for 1 year.
Mhm.
By the time we plan our plan, by the time we want to execute, I think our term is over, Dato. How about continuing the plan when the new president takes over? Normally, I don't think so. They will continue the proposed plan we planned.
So that's the thing, right? So I think that one, Francis also just now asked a question. So we say we will have that strategic planning chair for 3 years, the club, while again, right? So every president, so that's why the annual planning doesn't work. Every president he comes in and says, "This is what I want to do, my president here." And I think we as members of the club, when we elect that particular president, we subscribe to the idea and says, we put him there and says we know what he wants to do and we support him. But that's the thing. Again, strategic priorities. My medium term, my immediate term, which is the 1 year, I do project A. But in the medium term, this is what I want the club to be in this community, in this geography, in this area, in this domain. So while we do that yearly thing and we carry on with life, there is this back end parallel work that we do to maintain those medium term aims. It's like simple thing to say, I mean, brother, you are Indian, isn't it? So I'm not very racist, but I give you this example, right? So the Indians in Malaysia sometimes, especially the middle class like us, actually have this attitude and says, if you subscribe to Tamil school, so they'll say, look at these Indian fellas, they're wasting money trying to build temples, this, that, and all that. Why not we build Tamil schools? So the concept is, you cannot build Tamil schools overnight because they're not done on Lego sets. So if you want to build a school, we have to take that planning and says, look, get permission first, get a certificate first, then eventually hope that the minister doesn't change and then build the building in 5 years' time. But life goes on for 5 years. So your life goes on for 5 presidents, and the 5th president will probably the one cut the ribbon and take the name. If the 4 fellows behind him don't screw him up, I think you are home. So your trick is to actually manage that 4 presidents, because that 4 presidents' names are not going to go down as the guy who delivered the dialysis project for your club, which was your medium-term aim. While every year the president, so the 5th president is the one. All the good money they put in FD and says in 5 years' time, I've got $200,000. Let's start one. The glory is going to go to the 5th guy. The trick is to manage that expectation and hope the other 4 fellows don't kick him out of the club before it comes.
Exactly.
Because I think these are all practical things. I've seen it happen in my little experience in Rotary.
Thank you, Dato.
But don't quote me and get me in trouble. Friends, I'll share that one in share that PDF document. Good.
Okay.
I go because I don't want to close the screen. If not, I go missing. Anybody else? 9 o'clock. I'm not sure. AG Naga has promised dinner for anybody.
Did you drive the Ipoh for dinner?
Grab service.
Okay.
Datuk Doctor, can I suggest to you whether we can take this up or not? I think do the planning is important for all the clubs. Now that you have come out with this good plan, can every club send one the chair of this and you especially come up with the special session for them to plan their strategy planning for the next 3 years.
Thanks, Sri. Actually, now that's again, that's experience talking, right? So he's seen 905 and says, let's bring the session to a landing, because that's actually what the last offer I wanted to make. Thanks to AG Naga and all the other AGs in the group and some of the PEs, and I think even the future governors are here, like Dr. Krishna. Is to say, look, I don't know what phase we are in or what phase every part of the world is in. I suppose in a phase where we can really sit down. I am available more or less anytime, as long as we just work out the time to sit with any of the AGs, either in a group or where they have already identified and says, this is the club I want to finish my strategic planning, because that's the kind of a promise we have also done to our DG Datuk Bindi, to say, look, pick that club, let's work completely through and through with them. In terms of pick that senior people in the club, I don't really no problems. So I can host it. We can come down and spend a day or maybe a working day in Ipoh or wherever it is, and to say, look, let's work with a club to come up with a strategic plan, because it's not one day. Like what Dr. Sri Nelson said, we probably have to do the document, we probably scribble, get some ideas, make some challenging questions, play devil's advocate, laugh, cry, hug, and then fight. But eventually we probably come up with a document, as opposed to Zoom somehow, I really don't think the document will run. It's very hard to get, it's very even hard to get actual feelings out of Zoom.
Agree.
So my offer on the table is any club, I mean, I suppose the AGs are my single contact point. So any of the AGs on this call or otherwise, my offer is any of your chosen club that we want to do, one club per AG, even if it's more, it's better, but otherwise one club per AG is to work with that club to come up with the strategic planning. We do it at their regular meeting. If we can secure a date, we do it off-site, we do it on-site, we can do it their club day, whichever works fine to your day. For me, Ipoh is faster to reach Ipoh than I can reach Subang Jaya.
Okay, I'll take note of your offer to give to one of my assigned club.
Okay, those three done.
Yes.
See, like my AG also comes from KL Raja.
Dato', if I may say something.
Subra, right.
Yeah. This wonderful session in my team, I would like to suggest during our intercity meeting with the governor, where we will have the entire board members, the club members of all the 4 clubs. We are waiting for the date from the governor towards end of the year. So this session will be a very nice physical session, will be a better choice.
Good.
So I'm looking forward for it. Hopefully I could give you a date.
No, for me, I know I'm the most jobless fellow in town. I'm not busy at all. So you just secure the date. But the thing is, Subra, this is the trick, right? So while it's a good introduction session, the trick is to get the document. And for that, intercity good, but let's identify the key fellows can deliver it. Maybe it'll be better even if we deliver the document on or before the intercity date. So at least, you know, we to me, it's easy to talk. Easy for many, especially all of us, because we can sit through a whole Zoom session and not be involved.
Yeah, agree. A good idea. You will deliver
Do it
to all
before
the
your intercity. Appoint those four, I think 4 clubs, right? So the 4 clubs, appoint those 4 strategic planning chairs.
Yes.
Deliver at least one draft document from one of those clubs. I think you'll probably come out as one of those AGs who receive an award from Dato' Bindi at the end of the year. So Subra Dandil, Kovin probably is like going to be the 22 out of 22 lah.
Thanks, Dato'. Yeah.
Anybody else? So if not, how do I share this?
Okay, if no more questions, we will proceed on. You okay, Dato' ATK?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Before that, ATK, you're supposed to share the slides, Sabu.
Yeah, well, I'm trying. What?
Just as a reminder, lah. You know.
DNB send reminder also. Now no need to pay what?
Yeah, DNB send reminder no need. No, but you put me in your committee, you know. So I'm reminding you, lah. Let's make it fun, lah. Strategic planning is not really as tough as what it is, lah. With ATK, we can all do, lah. You know, he's jobless one now. Call him over, lah.
Okay, I think the sharing of the PDF can go through AG Naga, and AG Naga can share it to all the AGs.
No problem. Yes.
I put in the group. I put in the chat.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, okay, thank you, Dato' ATK. So we can proceed on with the closing remarks by Dato' Sri Nelson Kok.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny. I'm glad tonight attend this session. Although I was quite hesitate to do that, you know. But when I see this, the club survival and the goal setting, that one is attract me to come and listen to Datuk Dr. ATK. And I learned 2 things tonight. Number 1 is Sendirian Berhad. You mentioned about the Sendirian Berhad. Now I don't understand why it's called Sendirian Berhad. You know, all in the family for the club. You know, that one the Benam Valley. And the other second word I learned tonight is we used to talk about SWOT, WOCT. You know, and tonight I learned the word called RISE. You know, reduce, increase, create, and eliminate. This is why I think in Rotary we must always participate to learn. And this tonight topic called the SPC, the strategic planning. See the plan, the word called plan. We need to plan. If you do not have a plan, it's a plan to fail. And this is what I implemented during my term as a president of RCK Raja. I planned the whole year program, you know, especially like to ensure that the activities are all planned as scheduled. If I do not plan, I think I will not have a successful year, and that is called plan to fail. And just now I highlighted that to be the SP plan to be successful, I think we need to appoint a chair, a senior person. I can think of it's more appropriate rather than give a new board member. You know, I don't think so. They can have the kind of experience or knowledge to plan the club future and to make it a survival path for the club. And we are glad that Datuk Dr. ADK is a well knowledgeable person. You know, the way I saw just today, the first time, although he was my AG assigned to a club, I have not really have a chance to speak to him person, to know him better. And tonight, I think I have no regrets to attend this session. And thank you, Datuk Dr. ADK, and I hope your service continue is needed to help our district and especially the club to chart their plan, the strategic plan, so that they can survive and set a better goal for the club in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dasri.
Thank you, Dr. Seri Nelson Kok, for your closing remarks. I think in the next future, that when we have the district planning presentation, Dr. ADK can consider on how to make everybody can join Rotary. Like what you have been saying, Tony can get everybody to fly. Okay, thank you, Dato.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.